Good morning and welcome to your daily solo 401k webinar Q&A session with my solo 401k financial. So we try to help you stop overpaying taxes and start building real retirement wealth. We also use this time to cover certain topics. Today's topic is, can a self-directed 401k invest in an LLC? So we're going to unpack that. Also, this is your chance to get answers regarding today's topic or any other aspect surrounding solo 401k plans and even IRAs. So type those questions over and we'll get to them as they come in. In the meantime, let's continue covering today's topic, which is, can a self-directed solo 401k invest in an LLC? So the answer is yes, as long as it's structured correctly and used for investment purposes only. Now, before we get into that topic, it's important to understand that you need to make sure you qualify for a solo 401k plan, because before you can even consider investing a solo 401k plan in an LLC, you need to be eligible to open a solo 401k plan. And eligibility is pretty straightforward. Essentially, a solo 401k is for owner-only businesses. So the IRS code created a solo 401k plan for self-employed individuals as long as their business does not employ any non-owner full-time W-2 employees who work 1,000 hours or more. So your business cannot employ anyone who is not an owner, who is a W-2 employee age 21 or older, where they are working 1,000 hours or more in your business. So if they work under 1,000 hours, then you can open a solo 401k plan. But if you do employ a full-time W-2 employee in your business and that individual is not an owner in your business, that individual cannot work 1,000 hours or more in your business. Otherwise, you would not qualify for a solo 401k plan. You can always exclude contractors regardless of how many hours they work. You can also exclude anyone under age 21 regardless of how many hours they work. So even if you have a W-2 employee who works 1,000 hours or more, as long as that individual is under age 21, you can still participate in the solo 401k plan. Of course, don't confuse that W-2 exclusion with someone who is self-employed in an S corporation or an LLC taxed as an S corporation, because a solo 401k plan can be sponsored by any type of self-employed business. It just needs to make sure that you don't hire any non-owner W-2 employees. So if you're an owner in your own S corporation, you have to be a W-2 employee. You have to be an owner and an employee, and you would be a W-2 employee. So you would qualify because you're an owner in your own business. That W-2 1,000 hour requirement refers to someone who is not an owner, who works in your business. So don't confuse that. Okay, looks like we've got a question here. If a solo 401k paid contractors, does the solo 401k need to issue a 1099? If so, what is the payment name and tax ID to use on the 1099? So, no, the solo 401k plan is not required to issue a 1099 to a contractor. If that contractor is adamant about receiving a 1099, you would issue that 1099 in the name of the solo 401k plan and then list the EIN number for that solo 401k plan. Okay, let's keep going here. So again, we're talking about, can a self-directed 401k, aka solo 401k, invest in an LLC. And we went over the fact that you first have to make sure you're eligible. And the answer is yes. A solo 401k can invest in an LLC, but it has to be for investment purposes. In other words, you cannot invest that solo 401k in your own active operating business. So if you are self-employed in an LLC, you cannot invest that solo 401k in your own LLC where you're working for that LLC. That's disallowed. That would result in a prohibited transaction. Anytime you're investing in a solo 401k plan, you have to avoid prohibited transaction regulations. And you have to make sure that if you do decide to invest a self-directed solo 401k in an LLC, the solo 401k will be a single member in that LLC. It'll be the sole member of that LLC. So you need to make sure it's properly set up. That LLC setup is properly structured, including the LLC operating agreement, and of course, obtaining the EIN number for that LLC, which is separate from the solo 401k EIN. The solo 401k plan is a retirement trust, so it has its own separate EIN number. And then an LLC is a separate entity, so the LLC has its own EIN number as well. Now, why use a solo 401k owned LLC? Well, that's referred to as checkbook control, but you actually already have checkbook control with the self-directed solo 401k plan. So you technically don't need an LLC in order to make the same types of investments that you would qualify to make under a solo 401k plan, such as alternative investments like real estate. We're talking about physical real estate in this instance, such as rental properties, whether commercial or residential real estate, cryptocurrency, promissory notes, tax liens, precious metals, the list goes on. So some clients think they'll get faster investment, they'll be able to process investments quicker. Well, that's not true, because again, you can make those same alternative investments directly through the solo 401k, which has checkbook control, which you can write checks for making investments, or you can make that investment by wire. Now, some clients like to invest their solo 401k in an LLC because they want to have some liability protection. Because an LLC typically has liability protection, whereas a solo 401k liability or protection from general creditors falls at the state level. So it depends on your state of residence and that state's code as to whether or not your solo 401k is protected from general creditors. So clients that like to invest in alternative investments like real estate will sometimes open up a LLC where the solo 401k invests in an LLC known as a solo 401k LLC. So it's for creditor protection in some instances. If you decide to proceed with the investing your self-directed 401k or self-directed solo 401k in an LLC, where the solo 401k is the sole member of that LLC, then you need to understand the process. So again, you would first open a solo 401k plan. It would need to be a self-directed solo 401k plan. And here in my solo 401k financial, we offer self-directed solo 401k plans. So solo 401k plans offered by traditional institutions like a bank or a brokerage firm doesn't allow for investing your solo 401k in an LLC. You need to make sure it's a self-directed solo 401k plan, like the one offered by my solo 401k financial. And here at my solo 401k financial, we offer the solo 401k LLC setup service. So not only do we offer self-directed solo 401k plans, but we also offered the facilitation of an LLC for investing in solo 401k in that LLC, including registering the LLC with the state. So we would register that LLC with the state, with the Secretary of State in your particular state. We would then prepare a compliant operating agreement with the required IRS language that covers the solo 401k rules. So it can't just be some off-the-shelf LLC operating agreement. We would also obtain the employer identification number for that solo 401k plan as part of the process. And of course, the EIN number for your LLC. And then we would provide you with information regarding opening up the bank account for that LLC. So the solo 401k is going to have its own separate EIN number, bank or brokerage accounts. And then the LLC will also have its own separate EIN number, bank accounts, or bank account, I should say. The LLC will just have a bank account. And then once that solo 401k is funded, or if it's an existing solo 401k, then you would wire the funds from that solo 401k holding account, aka bank or brokerage account, directly to the bank account for the LLC. And that's how the LLC is funded. So once that LLC has been funded, that results in the solo 401k plan being the single member, the sole member of that LLC. So now going forward, the investments that you want to make inside that LLC will be made through that LLC bank account. So when you make investments such as real estate, private equity, promissory note, cryptocurrency, and so forth, those are all going to be titled in the name of the LLC, not the solo 401k plan, because remember, the solo 401k plan is a member in that LLC. So the LLC is the one making the investments for an LLC that's owned by a solo 401k plan. Now, here in my solo 401k financial, again, we provide the solo 401k setup as well as the solo 401k LLC setup. So if you're looking to get that set up, the LLC piece, let us know and we can walk you through that process moreover and further. But that's how the process works. So looks like we're done for today. We appreciate you joining today's session. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like us across the different social platforms. That will help us get the word out to other solopreneurs. We'll be back again here in a few hours with another topic. Until then, have a great rest of the day.